go in 3, 2, 1.
MyMichelleLive Sports Timeout. The fans, the field,
not on the
faith,
Zoom.
the fun. Here's Michelle.
So you can kill the recording.
That's okay.
We can re-record.
Well, no, because we're streaming live. Thanks, Garrick.
Oh.
But
Hello, live audience.
you could just kill the live. That's bad. Hey, it's sports timeout today, and here we are.
You can only kill the live because if it's
don't
not
kill the
live, then you
live.
can't kill it.
We're going to be taking on a lot of sports of the week and looking for a deeper story, as we always do. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for sports.
Sports.
Welcome to My Michelle Live Sports Timeout. Let me introduce you to our round table of fellas, and well, I'm not quite a fella, but that's okay. I'm just one of the guys. We've got Garrick Pang. He is a pastor, a chaplain, a coach, a prolific soccer player, and he is joining us from Italy today. Welcome.
Live from Naples.
There you go. We
Napoli.
have author, sports reporter, and sports photographer Brent Baker, where if you go to brentrbaker.com, you can get a copy, pre-copy still of his book.
This is the real deal.
Oh, it's the real
It's
deal.
launched.
Where's my copy?
It is
official.
launched.
I'm reading it again upstairs. It's called Breaking Yesterday. It's sci-fi coolness at its best. It is an extraordinary book. You should pick it up. Our sports authority, and you'll often hear him as our man on the street on our My Michelle Live podcasts. He is an all-around cool guy, and our official Wookiee, Joshua McMillan. Hey, guys.
Hey.
What up?
We're live now. You guys are just being shy. What's going on?
What is live may never die.
Well, okay, so here's an interesting news story, and to me it ties into sports, but then again, almost everything does. Planet Earth is the quietest that it has been in decades. Quiet and calm. It says it's because lockdowns have reduced seismic noise. And I think if you look at, I don't know, some of the seismic activity that has come from sports, you know that like Seahawks fans, as I broadcast from Seattle here, are renowned for our deafening volume. In fact, the outdoor stadium, which was formerly known as Clink, it's kind of like Prince there, the stadium formerly known as Clink, has twice held the Guinness Book of World Records for the loudest crowd roar. In 2013, it was 136.6 decibels. In 2014, a little louder at 137.6 decibels. And to put it in perspective, a crazy loud off-the-charts rock concert usually gets around 120 decibels. So it's crazy. And we've had seismoticians, is that the word you use, from the University of Washington?
Seismologists.
Oh, there you go.
We all corrected you.
Thank you. Seismologists from the University of Washington had gone to the stadium registering the seismic boom. So it's sports being changed up has really affected not only our lives, not only sports in general, but maybe even the planet.
I don't know if that science works for me.
It only works if we're considered a virus.
I mean, there are less cars driving. There is less sports happening. I didn't read the article, so I'm not sure about what measurement they're taking and whether or not it's from space
it's just quieter. It's been the quietest it's been in decades, and they are attributing it to Corona. Whether you like the science or not, there's something happening, and I'm going to blame it on sports.
Well, I mean, I think it could be quieter, but if you want to kind of go deeper, there you can also say it's a lot louder from all the screams of people inside their their pandemic
Our bubbles.
quarantine zones. Yeah.
In our little bubbles. I'll tell you what's not quiet though. The 2021 offseason of the NFL, it's looking a little bit crazy. It's looking like, do you guys remember back in 1999? 1999 was one of those years where there were, if I remember right, and our sports encyclopedia guy isn't here today to correct me, so I can basically say anything I want. I think it was 16 out of the 30 teams that played back in 1999 had changed their starting quarterback. And right now, what do we have? We have like the Detroit Lions booted Matthew Stanford. They got a bunch of Stafford. I'm sorry. They got a bunch of draft picks and
Jared Goff.
Yeah, and Jared Goff. The Eagles, Carson went to the Colts. That's official now, right?
Yeah, Carson went to the Colts. Yes.
All right.
Carson Wentz wins.
Carson Wentz,
he wins.
And the Eagles actually are paying a lot of money to not keep Carson Wentz too. It's really remarkable.
What the heck?
Something like they're going to take something like a $40 million cap hit as part of this trade. And it's perfect for Indianapolis. I mean, Phillip Rivers gave him the last year of his career and retired, and they really didn't have a great option. I know they were really pursuing Matthew Stafford as well, that the Rams ended up with. But I think the big thing
Jared
for
Goff leaving too.
Yeah, well, Carson Wentz in Indianapolis could be a good fit because he has relationships there that have worked with him earlier in his career. So, and that's a guy that, man, a couple of years ago, he was an MVP candidate, and now he's just broken. And I mean, mentally, he just isn't the same player that he was. And whether it was because his relationship with his coaching staff broke, or the fact that really they had no receivers for him to throw to, I think for him, it potentially could be a really good move. And for the Colts, it could be a really good move too.
Okay. And what else is going on out there that you guys have heard word of? I mean, what about some of the retirements? I mean, we don't know for sure, but there's always those rumors of Brady, Breeze, who else that might be on the chopping block or for themselves going into retirement. I mean, there's that to take into consideration. Jacksonville, what if Miami gets Deshaun Watson? I mean, there's a lot happening there in the background.
Yeah, people want Russell Wilson traded. I mean, it's a crazy year.
Okay,
Not too many.
and no, and there's been a lot of rumors about that. What was the latest one that he wants to get traded to Dallas? Why would anyone want to get traded to Dallas? But it wasn't just this. This is the thing that I'd like you guys to weigh in on. The news story wasn't that Russell Wilson wants to get traded to Dallas. Was that Russell and Ciara want to get traded to Dallas?
Yeah.
What position does she play?
Yeah.
Well, she's Russell Wilson's boss. That's why.
Yeah, I feel like between Sierra and Mark Rogers, his agent, like they've tried to pull him in so many different directions. And you heard him on the Dan Patrick show when he was talking about how he's tired of getting hit and all that. Like if you listen to him, he sounds nervous. Like he doesn't sound like he's in his element there. You know, like his whole brand has been like the good man brand, right? Like he's all about being the good guy, and this was him being the bad guy complaining about it on the Dan Patrick show, and he didn't seem comfortable. And it really feels like this isn't what he wants to do. This is off brand for him. He doesn't like throwing people under the bus and doing all that. He's not a good bad guy. You know, like he doesn't play that role well. And it really showed. Like he didn't sound comfortable, and it felt forced. And you see people talking about it afterwards. Like most people don't like what he's doing here because is he wrong that he needs better protection? No, he's not wrong. I mean, he does need to play a little bit better to not take the sacks. He holds on to it too long, I think, sometimes. But aside from that, like he's playing the part of a bad guy that does not behoove him. And national media and fans, for the most part, kind of agree with that statement.
Well, I think
that's good,
I think
Josh.
I think a lot of it got blown way out of proportion, and
what? We don't do that in our society.
Right.
Especially not on
So,
sports
well, I mean, if
news.
you break down what he said, he didn't want to get hit as often. people are taking that as him throwing the offensive line under the bus, and that is definitely one element of
And
it.
the
His offensive line.
They
His
weighed
offensive
in.
line-
A lot of the folks on the line weighed in and said, "No, he's perfectly right in saying that."
Yeah,
I mean, those
that's
are the
some
kind
of
of
it.
things you're talking about on the sidelines, anyway. Come on.
Some of this, I mean, some of it's, and he even said this in that same interview, some of it's holding onto the ball too long. And why is it some of that happening?
Right.
Well, why does some of that happen? As we've talked about before, the offense stagnated in the second half of the season to where they didn't adjust to what defenses did with the cover two that shut down DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So all of a sudden his receivers weren't getting open. So that leads to you hanging onto the ball longer, which leads to you getting hit more often. And when you're a guy that moves around a lot, that is harder for a line to manage because you can't see behind you to know exactly where he's at. A pocket passer is easier to block for. So that's part of what's going on here. But
Well,
if
the
he had-
lack of a mid game.
Exactly. And that was where they failed to adjust. They didn't use guys like Freddie Swain or even Lockett to throw little 7-yard slants or whatever instead of going for the big play all the time. I think if Schottenheimer were still here, if Brian Schottenheimer were still here, or if Russell Wilson had not had a major part in hiring the next offensive coordinator, I think I'd be a lot more concerned about the direction this was going. Unless, I mean, I guess it's possible behind the scenes he didn't have much say in it. I'm not getting that impression. I just feel like most of this is a media invented circus, and he hasn't really been in the center of one of those before. And I don't think he really maybe is getting the best advice in managing it.
Well, here's the problem. It's not a media invented circus. It's a Russell Wilson camp, a.k.a. Mark Rogers invented circus. Because Colin Cowherd says that he can tell us this from Russell Wilson that he's unhappy with Pete Carroll, right? And that is not – Mark Rogers used Colin Cowherd and a couple other media outlets extensively during the contract negotiations. Mark Rogers is a cancer that Russell Wilson needs to get rid of because it's a bad look for him. But it's causing a division where I don't think Russell Wilson wants division, right? Like it's being spun this way because that's the way that his camp keeps telling the media that it is. And I think we're all very aware who his camp is. It's his agent that wants to, Russell Wilson wants to leave Seattle. You know, he's out of here. You know, we heard that how many times during his last contract negotiation. It's not like it's just poorly managed. And you got to blame Russ for keeping a guy like that around, and listening to the bad advice. But, you know, what I want to do, I want to ask Russell Wilson, can I just be your no guy? Can you just hire me to be the guy that stands there and says, nah, whenever people come to him with bad ideas, like, and not just Mark Rogers and how he wants to handle things. I want to be the no guy for people that want to make Eats the Ball or, you know, all the other ridiculous things that he's been funding as his entrepreneurial spirit. I just want to sit there and be like, no, I got you. Let me just tell everyone no.
You know, don't you think that?
Sorry about that.
Don't you think that like personal loyalty? I mean, I don't advocate being disloyal, but personal loyalty to the wrong people has brought down more guys once they've made it big. It seems like you've got your buddies, you've got your agent, whoever, and when they start making bad decisions for you, it's like, well, this is my guy, so I kind of, you know, I got to support my guy. I got to support my camp. They've been there for me. I need to be there for them. It's like, okay, all of a sudden you're making more than the gross national product of a third of the countries in the world. You need competence, not just a buddy to run your operation.
Okay, and so what does also playing off of what you just said, how does the superstar status, I mean, and then if you look at the Wilsons Daily, they have these pictures of, have you guys seen them on Facebook? Pictures of themselves, you know, sometimes half dressed, and one yesterday, CR with her rose and showing off her hiney, and it's like, okay, you know, that's fine, that's part of their superstar status, but I guess what I'm asking is, where Russell Wilson is concerned, part of his charm and part of his I don't know, overall, who is Russell Wilson he's been a relatable guy, and he's turned into a superstar. Does that go to his head? I can't imagine that he's not the kind of guy, in my opinion, where that kind of thing goes to your head, but you got to wonder.
Well, he is human, last time I checked. And so, I mean, we saw that during the NFL season where the calm, cool Russell got rattled. And right? I mean, we're all human. And
Yeah, and I'm not saying that as a superstar you don't put out, that, but what are you putting out? What are you identifying as? What are you connecting with to say this is who I am? And that's what we see from superstars. So I'm not slamming the Wilsons at all. They're going to do what they're going to do. I'm just saying that I guess it leads me into something maybe a little deeper that we can face off on, and that is our identity. We seem to, in America especially, in the Western culture, we are trying to find our identity. I identify as this. This is who I am. And some of those things, in my opinion, are temporal. They're things based on shifting sand. They can even be, I don't know, unfulfilling. And I'll give you an example. Ryan Russell, he is one of the first players from the LGBT community to be featured in a regular season NFL game. He's played. He had an elbow injury which took him out last year. He has come out as being bisexual, right? And part of why he says he did that is that my identity was built up in football. Now, when I almost lost that career, I had to find, well, who else am I? What can I identify as? So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about that identity in sports. What do I identify as? What happens when you no longer have your career? Who are you? And where do we find a real identity? Please, though, don't everybody talk at once, because that it's annoying for the audience.
Well, I just speaking from some experience, not on specifically the LGBT side, but for 15 years, I did sports writing and photography and newspapers and websites in Michigan. And about 10 years ago, when the economy collapsed there, all of a sudden that was all gone. We had to move. My wife got another job, and it wasn't until that was gone. I mean, we got here here in Eastern Washington, and I did not have anything that I was here for except my wife got a job. And that was a rough year, just internally, just like evaluating who I was separate from the sports guy. I mean, I had a pretty good footprint in Michigan. I could walk into gyms, in a 100-mile radius, and people would know who I was. I even had signs up every now and then that had my name on them because kids wanted their pictures taken. But, and that can go to your head a bit, I'll admit. So poof, it was all gone. So I can understand. It's not like I had no faith in Jesus at that time. I had that, but at the same time, I had become
identify as a lot of things. You can identify
I had become
as a parent.
defined by that. Become defined by that. And
we do that as parents. And then when your kids, you have an empty nest, then it's like, well, who am I now? You can identify with your marital status. And if that changes, who am I now? You can identify, as you mentioned, with your job. And if that goes away, who am I now? So it is something that we all struggle with. What do we identify as? We do see it put in the forefront a lot, though, in sports. Colin Kaepernick, there was a piece actually in USA Today. Alex Smith was saying that Kaepernick's absence from football is a tragedy. And it happened because the country just wasn't ready for him. Nobody was ready. He was sitting there trying to tell people through what Smith says was a completely peaceful manner, that there's problems in the country. And it's been alluded to because he identifies as someone who wants to make a difference. He's being ignored. Another person that we can identifies with being a woman and being black is St. Marshall. Has gone from Berkeley's first black cheerleader to the first black woman CEO in the NBA. And we put a lot of emphasis on that and say, great. But I think it goes back to, well, what are we identifying as? It's great to champion something, but those things can change with, a snap of a finger. Josh?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with all you're saying. It's a interesting world we live in these days where we've conflated everything with politics so much in every realm. And I think I sent you this, but there's a guy, Eckhart Slatter on YouTube, who's a big Star Wars guy.
Yes.
He didn't talk about what his politics on the matter was, but he was talking about like the Gina Carano thing and how politics have invaded it. And he was saying, I used to engage in these discussions politically, but I'm just tired of it. I remember a time when we could all talk about issues, when we could all sit down and discuss it without villainizing each other.
Do you remember when Star Wars wasn't political? When it was just one of probably the coolest movie that had ever come out back in 1974, whatever, I don't know. But it was just once 77. I don't know. When it was just the coolest show, the movie that had ever come out, and you traded little Star Wars figures and waited a decade for the next movie to come out. That's back in the day. For those of you who don't know, Star Wars didn't used to be political. Sports didn't used to be political. Why does it have to be? And why does our identity have to be in your face and part of something that traditionally it hasn't been? It could just be a place that you could go where everyone could just get along and play the game. Garrick?
Well, Michelle, I think, as you always point out, that everything comes back to the God story. I mean, it truly does. And if we don't have Christ as the center of our lives, which is truly where our real identity comes from, then we will be searching for identity. We will be searching for meaning. We will be searching for significance, whether it be in our work or in our relationships, in our sexuality. I mean, you name it. We will be looking to find identity somewhere.
Yeah.
And
when those things shift and change, and you don't have that eternal identity, like with Brother Brent there, switching your whole life up, without that safety net, without that, people would say religion is a crutch, Jesus is a crutch. Well, if you're broken and you can't walk, hello, I'll take the crutch, thank you very much. That's what really gets you through when your identity shifts, when the sands of time shift, when everything goes cattywampus. So there you go. Let's get back to some sports talk, shall we? I wanted to talk about the NHL. I'm kind of excited about this. They're going to be staging a couple of games outside in these outdoor settings. Actually, this weekend, on the 18th fairway, if I have it right, of a golf course. It'll be on the shores of Lake Tahoe. The Sierra Nevada mountains will be in the background. It's going to be gorgeous, and I think it's so cool because I am tired of fans in the can, right? It was cute back last year when we had the little cardboard cutouts in the stands, and even in the Super Bowl, that was okay. It was kind of all right. We were trying to do something, but now it's kind of getting old and stupid, and we know it's not. It's like watching a bad sitcom with canned laughter. It just doesn't. I don't care how good you are at it. Doesn't match up. This is something innovative and new. Good for them. I think Colorado and Vegas, Boston and Philadelphia this weekend, both outdoor games. Thoughts, guys?
Oh, but the altitude will be fun for those guys in Tahoe, that's for sure.
Oh,
But you know, it'll be
yeah.
interesting. I think it's great for hockey, because hockey is essentially an outdoor sport. I mean, that is where it originated. It's, basketball has always been an indoor sport. Baseball, I mean, I hate it when it's played indoors. And, I RIP Kingdom for a long time now, but hockey is one of those things that obviously in the league, it's hard to execute an outdoor game all the time. But these, they've been doing it for a while, so they know how to do outdoor games. But it just, I think, is great to show the sport at its root, where it came from. It'd be more fun if they, did it out on Lake Superior or something, out on lake ice, uneven lake ice. But no, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's nice. Just change it up a little bit. Use the time that we're in and do something innovative and different. Because I don't know, Josh, aren't you getting a little tired of the fan in the can kind of fake cheers and such? I don't know. It's old for me. I never
Yeah.
liked it to begin with.
Well, they did a good job in making games more watchable by putting that sound in, because otherwise it's hard to watch.
I
games
loved
without
hearing the
any fan
guys on the
noise.
field. I loved hearing guys on the pitch and hearing what they were
I
talking
mean,
about. And then there were the
Yeah,
F
but-
bombs, and that was kind of
Yeah. The,
Yeah,
the,
but
the dead
the
silence
background.
though, other than that, is like it's hard to get into that. It's just like it feels like we could do a little bit better job than that. But I do
think
miss the
you're
fan.
saying
I
that
think
because
we
it's
all
been
miss
a
the
while
fan.
since you've watched a game with me. There's not dead silence.
Well, I
Have been
imagine
any more
when-
cops to your apartment lately, or?
You know,
when
this is
that-
funny for
for
those who don't know. Gosh,
Yeah.
I was so embarrassed by this. What game was that? I think it was
Sounders.
the
Sounders
Sounders. Yeah.
semifinal. Yeah,
Oh, that was so sad. So yeah,
that was when they won. It was
we
when
were
they won.
Yeah, we were screaming. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was so excited at that. Screaming, yelling, cheering, get it, kill it, whatever. And so the neighbors thought someone was getting hurt and they literally called the cops. Literally the cops came. So, yeah, that's someone want to take
Sorry,
over?
Josh,
Well,
I blew up your
and-
point there.
but going, I love that idea of going outdoors with hockey, because to me it just changes. It's a change of scenery. I mean, for those who have never experienced spring training ball, for baseball, it is one of the coolest things, because you're in a smaller venue. You're close up to the stars, as in the athletes stars, but then and it's just so different. And hockey, at least the NHL, has always been an indoor sport. And so if you have the
Right.
venues and the places where you could do it in warm weather, and the technology now, I mean, it used to be indoor, I think, in part because hockey rinks, the ice needed to stay cold. And so if you were outside in warm weather, you couldn't. But I think now it's possible. And I just think it's really cool.
I'm excited. Well, you mentioned baseball, spring training, whatever, all the excitement. I think it's time to talk a little baseball.
Yes.
Okay, Josh, come on. This is you.
Yeah, I think we're all missing baseball now. I mean, we had a short season. Now we're kind of waiting for it to begin. But hey, pitchers and catchers have reported spring training. We're on our way there. And the big news for the Mariners right now is the Big Maple coming back to Seattle. James Paxton, you might remember him for the Maple Grove cheering section that he inspired, or the eagle that actually landed on his back in the pregame one time.
that was awesome.
Yeah.
But he's coming back, and he's going to add another big lefty. We are a little lefty heavy right now. I'll say that. I think 4 or 5 of our starting pitchers are probably lefties right now. But
Yes.
he
Problem there.
it's funny because now we've really won that trade we had with the Yankees, where we brought back Justice Sheffield in exchange for Paxton. Now Paxton's back, so really we won that trade pretty hard. Both of those guys in a rotation this year, but he adds another arm that can win. I mean, he's dealt with a lot of injuries in his career, which is really the reason he's back on a 1-year deal. But man, this guy can be really, really good. He threw a no-hitter for Seattle Mariners, one of only a couple players to do so. And he really gives us a chance to compete this year. And it gives
Do
a
you
lot of
really
people
think
mixed.
so? I mean, come on, I'm so excited about that. Being a Seattle-based girl, Josh. We have, for those who are listening that don't know, the Seattle Mariners have the longest dry spell of not entering playoffs of any major league, not just baseball, major league sport. We are at the bottom of the barrel. We are the underdog. It feels, it's almost painful. In fact, oh gosh, okay, you guys have to hear this as you're listening from wherever. If you don't live in Seattle, you don't know this. I lived right by the stadium, so I went to games all the time. But when the Blue Jays would show up, people would come down from Canada, and it was like we were at an away game. There was like so many Canadians there. It's just kind of
Same thing with the Red
discouraging.
Sox when we play Boston.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
yeah.
just
Now with the pandemic,
discouraging.
they can't come down. So that's
Thank
that's what
God for that.
that's the real conspiracy theory for me behind the pandemic is just to keep the Blue Jay
So
fans from
maybe
coming down
the
to Mariner
Mariners
games.
will have a shot, Josh.
Well, they're in a really good position right now. Why? Because one, they're on the uptick. Their rebuild is starting to come to fruition. They're seeing a lot of their young players that they really have been cultivating and trading for start to get to the place where they're ready to play in the major leagues. And look around the league. Who's the powerhouse team in the American League? Who's the big dog that no one can ever touch? I mean, there's some good teams out there, don't get me wrong, but there's no powerhouse that just dominates over here right now. And look in our division how things are going. The Astros lost a couple of key players this year and I don't know if they're going to be able to compete the same way that they had before. The A's were the other good team, and they've lost a bunch of their players. The Rangers are in the middle of their own rebuild. They're not really good. So, we have a real chance to actually even win the division and get to the playoffs. I don't think that we're going to compete for a World Series in 2021, but I think we have a good shot with the team we have of making the playoffs. Now, remains to be seen what they do. I mean, we may come to the terms that like, hey, you know what? We want one more year of good draft picks, one more year of getting these guys experience and maybe just kind of tickling the playoffs. They might trade James Paxton if he pitches really well at the deadline since he's on that 1-year deal. And he rebuilds his value and then he ends up going somewhere else. We bring back even more prospects and more. I mean, we're already, by some accounts, the third best farm system in the league. Everyone else in the AL West, for the record, is, I believe, 25th or below in those rankings from Baseball America. So we are in a great position to compete. And this year, I think there's a good chance that we sneak into the playoffs. But by 2022, watch out for this team, man. As we get these guys coming up, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Jared Kelnick, Julio Rodriguez, some of these guys that have real star potential. I mean, this is more future potential than the Mariners have ever seen, except for like maybe with Ken Griffey Jr., right? But I mean, how many other guys were they really
So
looking?
yeah, Junior was on his own. He didn't have a whole group coming up with him. Yeah,
We had
we have guys like Julio Rodriguez. Well, I mean, that was not someone coming up. That was a overseas signing, right?
That was someone,
like when has our farm system looked this good? I mean, Julio Rodriguez, people are seeing him as being a potential King Griffey Jr. type player. Like they're seeing some real potential in these guys and multiple guys. We have 3 or 4 outfielders alone that are projecting in the top 100, that are top guys. And we already have brought some of them up. So you got to be excited for where this team is heading. Stay fast. I mean, if we trade people away at the deadline, don't think that it's because we're taking another step back. It's because people like James Paxton are on a 1-year deal, or maybe Nick Margavicius, who is not necessarily a top of the rotation guy. We're like, hey, you know what? We have better players coming up. We're making room for them and getting prospects. This is going to be the last year where you're going to be seeing some of that happen.
You heard it
Josh,
here. Josh thinks
don't fret about
2022.
You nailed Margavicius. I am really impressed. That was awesome.
Sad thing though, guys,
practice.
If we all die of the coronavirus before 2022, the Mariners will never have gotten their shot.
Oh man, no, I'm so pumped because it's clear that they have focused on a competing long term as a top team. They're not there yet. They've got a lot of development to do. They're not all of these prospects are going to pan out. It'd be awesome if they did, but at some
even
point,
embarrassment of them, right? Like you got to
exactly.
hit on some of them.
But you'll hit on some of them, and then that's when you start making more significant free agent signings. Is where you find out where some of those longer term holes are. I think I'm excited about James Paxton being back. They've been talking about going with a 6-man rotation again this year, largely because pitchers only threw a third of the innings last year than they're accustomed to, and the minor leaguers didn't get any in-game work. So if you think about a perfect situation for Paxton, where his innings load will be managed, he's familiar with the environment, with many of the coaches, some of the players. There's been a lot of turnover, but and people will be welcoming him back, and everybody here is familiar with his injury history. So that's great. I'm just be interested to see if we get deeper into spring training, if Taijuan Walker's still out there, if they make a play for him, or if Paxton is that veteran signing they were looking to make and they call it good. Because they talked about Taijuan Walker last year when they traded him for prospects to Toronto, that he would be welcome back here because his contract was up at the end of the year. But we'll see.
Yeah,
Guys,
I think I'm torn on a Taijuan Walker's.
You don't want to stand.
Right.
You don't want to stand in the way of a Logan Gilbert.
No.
Right. And you got to think that if they sign Taijuan Walker, I mean, then you're kind of forced to relegate Dunn and Margavages to the bullpen. You're going to run out of room where you can play these guys. And I don't expect Logan Gilbert to come up before a little later in the year, because of them trying to make sure they have enough time with him and the service time, and when they start, there's always a little bit of playing with that to make sure they have him through the prime of his career under that rookie contract, right? And they might end up signing him to more, but if they sign Taijuan Walker, they start blocking guys, but they can really compete, and he would really slide in very well to this rotation because they need another right-handed arm. So I'm torn on that because I like it and I don't like it all at the same time.
It's a nice problem to have.
A method to the madness there. You guys, I learn a lot from your perspectives in baseball, because baseball's not my primary sport. I think Garrick's back there going, yeah, me too, probably, right? But I will say I love going to baseball games, and I'm really, really missing it. There's something special about, for me here in Seattle, hanging out at Edgar's, sitting there with a hot dog, and you go with a friend, because baseball is slow. When I go to a MLS match, Garrick, I'm not having small talk, and I try not to sit around, forgive me, girls, I try not to sit around women that I know, because they're kind of chatty. And it's like, look, I really want to see what's going on, because there's that constant action. But for me, and girls, you may get this too, going to a baseball game with the girls, we sit, we chat, it's a great place to really connect with friends. I don't know, that's a woman's perspective. What do you guys say?
Well, I know for me, it is just the environment. And if I want to watch a baseball, if I want to watch a baseball game and really see what's going on, I sit at home and watch TV. Because when I go to the game, I'm dead serious, 100%.
Yeah.
Because you get the commentary, you can see the replays, you see the pitch speeds and things like that. Whereas if I'm at a game, there's a lot going on. I have ADD, and I'm just loving being.
You're there for the Seattle Dogs.
Yeah.
No, the chili lime crickets.
That's right.
No,
sorry.
No.
I don't go there.
Crunchy.
But there's just something about it. And when I was a kid, I loved going to the Kingdom because it was just fun. But when we got outdoor baseball, oh my goodness, there's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. You don't have to be a big baseball fan to appreciate how amazing it is to go to a game. Are we going to get a chance to do that this year, though?
Well, some of those old Kingdom crowds would be very coronavirus friendly when they were getting 8,000 a game.
Yeah.
One of the reasons
You said it.
Baseball to me, when you go to a game, one of the great things about it is it's a game that you can go to with someone who's a huge fan or someone who's not a fan at all. And like you said, you end up talking with your friends, and you can be talking about the chili lime crickets on one side, and the other side, you're having these deep strategic baseball discussions about, okay, what are they going to throw on this? Is he leading off too far? Is he going to steal? Are they going to do a hit and run? Are they going to bunt? Or should they, what do you think about the shift? Is it out of control? All that kind of stuff. So there's, baseball is one of those games that looks simple on the surface, but there's a lot of nuance to it that you can really get into when you're sitting there and can see the whole field and just watch how outfielders move around as, between pitches and as they see what pitch is thrown, just that kind of stuff. So it can be
okay, Brent,
be,
come on over. I'll take you to a game. All right.
There you go. There you go.
I need a little bit of your input when I'm watching baseball.
Here's a Brent Baker challenge. How many times today can you fit in the title chili lime crickets? He's got two. He's got two. How many more times today can you fit in that phrase?
I went to a game 3 years ago, and I ate one. So that'll tell you how big it went over.
Yeah.
And I had two. I ate two big flats of garlic fries, though.
You have to challenge me to work it into a sermon now.
Oh, come on. Yes, do it. We challenge you guys, right?
Absolutely.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it. I like it. Hey, let's talk soccer for a moment. I can get behind this. I was watching the She Believes Cup. The U.S. women's national team yesterday took on Canada. And, Canada hasn't won against the U.S. women's national team, I believe, in almost 20 years. I think I want to say it was 2001 maybe. So we're looking at 20 years. And I may have that wrong because I'm pulling that out of my head. We usually have our sports encyclopedia guy, Rich Hallstrom, who will just instantly correct us on that. Yes, it was there. And this was what the weather was like. And yeah, whatever. But, oh my gosh, yesterday Canada was putting up a fight. And I think it was the 79th minute. I think I wrote it down somewhere, the 79th minute, where the U.S. scored to win. But that whole time Canada put them off. The U.S. just couldn't connect with the net. It wasn't that they were playing bad. I think it was that Canada was playing good. So that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's nice to see some teams finally being able to compete with the U.S. women's national team, because they are such a
you kind of just expect you expect 7 goals, and you're like so it was actually fun to watch. So that was pretty neat. I think here's a sweet side note. Megan Rapinoe FaceTimed with the squads. They kind of have a new mascot, so to speak. It's the baby of Ashlyn Harris, who's a goalkeeper, and Allie Krieger, who is a defender. They adopted a baby, and I think it's kind of precious that we see Megan Rapinoe as this big, loud, larger than life politics in your face, and that's okay to talk about. But I think we would be remiss in not showing that people are more than just their politics, and not just show she is a kicking player, and she's in many regards a beautiful human as well. So wanted to get that out there. But Major League Soccer is going to be starting up. What is it, April 3rd, Garrick?
Yeah, I think I haven't looked at the schedule exactly, but yeah, it's back. Last year we had the pandemic start of the season, so we had the MLS's back tournament, and so MLS is back in full swing, and so whether or not the whole fan
but a
situation,
little late, better late than never. I don't know, but I'm this time of the year would have already been at least one game, maybe two.
Well, no, it's February, so we'd still be in preseason.
We would be in preseason. Yeah. You're right, because we're looking at March. I'm like a month ahead, but we'd already and as a reporter, I'd already be there seeing
Right.
the
Right.
guys
That's a
playing.
difference.
So I
Yeah.
guess that's what's in my mind. I really miss that, being able to look at things, see how they're gelling together, what's going to happen. But at least we're getting things up and moving. Any other thoughts on things going on in the world of sports? We've got the 20-year anniversary of Dale Eckhart's death right there on the track. Side story to that, media was on it like paparazzi on Princess Di. It was kind of gross in a way. It was kind of macabre. But the media hasn't changed in 20 years. They've been almost gotten more license. Maybe some other news out there. What do you guys got? What you got? What you
I will
got?
say, on the Dale Earnhardt thing, that it was really interesting because I was not in a position to be covering something like that. But in the town where we lived, we had a father and son who, it was like their first NASCAR race that they went to was that, and they had gotten, you could get, it probably is even more advanced now, but at the time you could get like the audio feed from various drivers if you wanted to listen during the race while you're there. And they had Dale Earnhardt's audio feed. They were like huge fans of his.
Oh my
So, I mean, they were like,
gosh.
the kid was like 15 or whatever. And I remember, so I actually ended up doing a story on it, but I just remember talking to them and just like their whole experience of going through that as a father and son together. And of course, Dale Jr. was there when his dad was killed, and just kind of just how that impacted these guys, because it was much more personal than just seeing it on TV, because they heard things going on, and then he was gone. And man, it was for something I didn't like care about that much. It was really impactful.
Of course.
I mean, it was, oh man, that's really sad that this guy died. But then after talking to these guys, it was like, oh my goodness, this is really personal.
I think that's part of it. If we want to get to a deeper story too, that's part of what's going on in our world today. We don't have that personal connection anymore, and we've removed it so much more so with COVID. So some of the traumas, the tragedy, and even the disagreements that we have, it's not quite real. If I'm going to attack you on your politics or your faith or whatever it may be, guys, it's pretty easy to do it on Facebook and other social media outlets in ways that I would never behave if we were face to face, ever in a million years. So we see that with sports and other things. It's not real. Our world has become surreal. And I think it's time for us to find ways that we really can connect with people, connect 101, because we're really in need of that as we play the game of life. That's my opining for the day. Are you guys ready to take your final shot?
I'm ready.
Final shot.
Our final shot, where we go around the round table and we just give a shout out for an idea, a person, a story that is near and dear to us that we want you to know about. So we're going to start with the one and only Joshua McMillan, our sports authority, who, by the way, you can find him on Twitter at Josh Reports Live. Tweet him. He's such a tweetheart.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to make my final shot to is one we forgot last week, or I actually thought someone else was going to take it as their final shot, so I didn't want to steal the thunder. But Marty Schottenheimer, the father of our former offensive coordinator, he passed away last week, and I believe it was Alzheimer's that got him, if I don't remember right. But
Among
he
other
was
things, but yeah.
Yeah, he was a great figure, awesome coach. By all accounts, a great guy. I mean, obviously, I've never met him, but from all accounts that I've ever heard of Marty Schottenheimer's, he's well respected by pretty much everyone in the league. So, our thoughts and prayers to his family, and Brian Schottenheimer. We loved him here for his time in Seattle, and he's going through a hard time now with a transition happening, and then his dad dying. You gotta feel for him, but so thoughts and prayers out to his family.
Absolutely. Brent, final shot, sir.
Well, here in Washington State, our high school athletes are returning to sports. Football practice started this week. Everything else, including my cross country team, comes back on Monday. So I just, you know, as a coach, I have no clue what to expect. I mean, I know in my sport, kids have been out running on their own, but it's going to be really interesting because a lot of these kids haven't been physically active for a year.
Oh my.
And so,
I didn't think about that.
you know,
Oh.
and some of them have been, but I think,
Okay.
it's both a shout out and a prayer for, as this whole situation, as we bring them back, we still have pandemic guidelines, but we'll be getting kids together. We'll have to be socially distancing them. We'll be able to get some physical activity in. They'll be able to compete. They'll be able to build some memories besides sitting at home waiting for this to end. So I'm both looking forward to it and a little nervous about it, but that's my shout out.
There you go. Yeah, I think many of us haven't been terribly physically active for a year, or as much as we should.
I'm not
Garrett,
sure I could walk our cross country course right now. So
Garrick, I'm going to save you for last because you're in Italy. So for that time delay, I'll go ahead and go. I wanted to give a final a shout out to Shakeem Griffin. He's a Seahawk player. He was born with amniotic band syndrome, which made him have to get his left hand amputated when he was just 4 years old. I wanted to point out that guy, has overcome a lot to be a professional football player, and he and his brother both really good guys. It's good to see the love on the sideline from Shaquille and Shakeem. But Shakeem partnered with Hartford. They have an ability equipment program, and they provided a couple of special athletes with some pretty game-changing equipment. If I remember right, he gave certain folks that you would say have disabilities, just things in order to play the games better. One was a little older, one was a little younger. But here's the thing. He says, we don't have disability. There's only ability. And so for whoever you are, where you feel like you fall short or where, you're not winning in the game of life, God made you so special and so amazing. You have abilities that he's gifted you with. You find those abilities and you will have a win in life's game. All right. We are now ready to get pinged.
Right. So we talked about MLS earlier, and one of the things that came out this week was the MLS Top 10. And each year, Greg Seltzer, brother of Alka, has this list of top 10. You didn't get my joke, did you? This is what happens.
Where's the canned laughter? Where's the canned fans?
The cardboard cutouts are laughing.
Got it.
It's in translation. You're coming from Italy. Sorry about that. It's lost in
translation. So that was definitely a dad joke. Because we were going through the Frankfurt airport, and my son wanted a hot dog, and he had one. It was the Wurst. So this is what happens when I get 45 minutes of sleep in a 27-hour period. So, but
we've been seeing
MLS,
some of the effects of that too.
Yeah, the MLS Top 10 list came out, and on it was Seattle's very own number 7, Christian Roldan.
Oh.
And that young man,
he's a sweet man, sweet guy.
He is hardworking. He is humble. He is
newly married.
Newly married. One of the and I think this is kind of a knock-on final shot, because Osvaldo Alonso is the person that he watched and played next to, and
that guy is set the standard. Ozzy set the standard. I set the standard.
I think Christian is in part the player that he is today because he had that opportunity, but he gets my final shot today. And if I may, I want to give another final shot. I'm doing a double shot today.
Double shot.
He needs it with the lack of sleep.
Yeah, right.
Quad. Let's go for the quad shot.
Okay, I will. Because my wife, Anna, she is the most amazing person that I know. I mean, she truly is. And, you know, we have been planning this trip to Italy before Christmas, and COVID made it so that we left Seattle on Saturday, and so we knew this big storm was coming in. So we thought we were going to outsmart the storm. We stayed at a hotel on Friday night, and sure enough, we did. We didn't have any trouble getting to the airport, but then bump, delay. And we left Seattle when our flight from San Francisco was supposed to be flying over to Europe. Well, it took us 3 hours in the airport to try and rebook for Tuesday. Well, the airline messed up our ticket. Finally, and one day I was on the phone 14 hours, literally 14 hours on the phone trying to get rebooked. And we finally got out here. We left on Thursday in San Francisco, and we just made it to Naples, Italy. And my wife she's just so awesome. She's been patient and gracious, and she's just incredible. And her family here, this meal, I'm actually going to go back downstairs and finish the meal because I was eating when it was time
My
for the
stomach's
podcast.
growling. I love
We're gonna
Italian
have to-
food.
we're gonna have
What
to
are
put
you
together
eating?
We're going to have to put together a workout recovery plan when you get back.
I know, right? He made, her brother-in-law made his own homemade sausages. Not sausages, but the like the dried meats.
Like a charcuterie board kind of a thing?
Yeah.
Salamis and...
Salamis, thank you.
All right.
Types of things. And he's got
Yeah.
mozzarella de bufala. I mean, it is fresh and smoked, and these fresh breads that are just to die for. And so my final that was a quadruple shot.
And you're bringing some home for us, right? Because you value your friendship. Okay, that's good.
Checking the mail daily.
And as we wrap up the program today, don't forget the Brent Baker Challenge. And that is, how many times can you have chili lime crickets brought up in conversation today? That's the word of the day, the phrase of the day, chili lime crickets.
Chili
Also
lime crickets. It's
go to
baseball season.
BrentBaker.com and get this book. I'm telling you.
Brent R. Baker.
Brent R. Baker. BrentRBaker.com. Where Breaking Yesterday is such an extraordinary book. It is great. If you like sci-fi, you'll love it. If you don't like sci-fi, you're still going to love the adventure. I mean, it's something for everyone in there. It's really well written. I love it. And hey, guys, thanks so much for joining us today for our sports timeout. We will catch you next week. Have a great weekend.
Play ball.
Woohoo! It's the My Michelle Live podcast.
My Michelle Live. My Michelle Live. Sports timeout.
Yeah,
The
thanks,
fans,
guys.
The field, the
Thank you,
faith,
Pat.
the fun.
Garrick,
Here's
You
Michelle.
have to hit the stop button on the recording.
I'm working
there,
it.
Michelle.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
you were fun to watch, Garrick. You got a few messages from me, hoping your phone would ping to wake you up.
Oh my gosh. We are still recording.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. There we go.
There were a couple times I thought you were coming
My
back.
face almost hit the keyboard.
I was dying.
We had delayed Christmas, and they were opening gifts like crazy, and I was just, I could